In 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm Danny Smith, Executive Vice President and co-owner of ColorID, one of the world's leading integrators of advanced identity solutions. Today's webinar session is titled JRNY, Return Safely, Continue Confidently. This session will repeat live next Wednesday, November 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So please feel free to invite colleagues from your institution or anyone you know across the identity industry who would benefit from learning more about the JRNY solution. Today's session is being recorded and will be available on demand soon. We'll send an email notification out when it's ready. You know, we're really appreciative of the meaningful relationships we've developed over these past 20 years, and we're incredibly grateful we can still come together and stay connected. We got a large group of higher education identity industry attendees joining us today. So as we always say, whoever you are and wherever you may be, we welcome you. And we hope that you find an investment of your time of good value. And we encourage you to be really interactive in these sessions. Now, leading today's technical discussion will be David Stallsmith, Director of Product Management here at ColorID. And David brings a wealth of technical information from over 14 years of working with advanced identity solutions. Of course, many of you know and you've worked with David over the years as he works closely with manufacturers, vendors, and end users to promote understanding of the complicated products and services that comprise our identification industry. He's contributed to the decision-making process at many universities, healthcare facilities, and government agencies as they've considered acquiring contactless, smart card, mobile ID, biometric, and identity management solutions. And since 2006, David has presented it annually at the NACU conference and has also presented at NACUS's annual and leadership conferences, the European and the Canadian Campus Card Users Conferences, and full-day identity summits hosted by some of the most prominent universities in North America. David's technical knowledge concerning advanced identity solutions is a testament to his commitment to our industry and a great example of the value differential ColorID employees brings to our customer and our corporate partner relationships. Now, just a few housekeeping items, we'll get started. We're really encouraging these sessions to be interactive as possible, so please utilize the question box to submit questions. All questions will be answered at the conclusion of the presentation during the Q&A period. In addition to asking questions, there will also be a live poll throughout the presentation, so please make sure you participate in those and be as prompt as possible. Also note, ColorID's and higher education team is listening in today, and they're available for any questions or follow-up discussions. Just call or shoot your account manager an email. I just want to thank everyone again for the privilege of your time and allowing us all to come together and stay connected. I'm going to turn this over to David to go ahead and get started. David?
Great. Thanks, Danny. And it is very good to be here. Thank you all for joining us. Let's get started right away. On the title page, JRNY, Return Safely, Continue Confidently. Bold statements, and I'm going to try to make sense of that and explore that in the next half hour or so as we talk about this. But let's start off with a poll. Danny, you want to lead us through this?
Yeah, Dave, sorry about that. Yeah, we already have opened it up, so here we can see the question is, where's your campus in the pandemic response? You've got a few responses coming in already, and if you would just be as prompt as possible, we'll move through this. But you're doing a really good job, so the numbers are really popping. It's quite interesting, actually, to see the distribution of choices here. But anyway, let me close that out, and then we'll share that with everybody. So you can see it's pretty. The top three are, you know, there's. I hope that the looks like the election we may have later on today. But anyway, you could see 40% mostly virtual. Not many people on campus. Residents less than half. So that's a combination of things really to see what's happening. And 10%, you know, God bless you. We got people that are already back and things are working out well for them. So, you know, that's always a good sign.
Great. Interesting. So yeah, 10% is pretty strong given everything we've been through lately. Some of the things that you all know and that we've heard when we talk to our customers and friends in the university area, classrooms and facilities are not being fully used, obviously, when 70% are less than half in the residences or mostly virtual. And of course, the impact on the universities is a loss of income. Now, hopefully there's another stimulus plan rolling out here pretty soon. Hope see how that goes. But if that finds its way in to help out universities, otherwise, we're concerned, and everybody is. How we haven't. I think we haven't even begun to see the loss of income over the next few years that will result because of things we've just been through this year. Back on the personal level, how does the school handle these things if somebody has a high temperature? Maybe somebody at the school says, well, then go contact the health center, or maybe they don't. It's just kind of honor system. If there is contact tracing, it's often done manually. We've heard that story. We say, well, are you doing contact tracing? Well, yeah, we do that. Well, what happens? Well, when we find out somebody's been exposed, and then we hear, we put somebody on it, they go to the access control people, maybe they pull a log, they do interviews, they talk to folks, trying to figure out how that works. It's being done manually. The thing is that a lot of the systems that could be used to monitor these activities don't reach across the whole campus. Another concern is employees' families, faculty and staff. Maybe the employee's okay coming on campus and wearing a mask, but they're concerned when they go home. What are they dragging back with them? And so all of these, and these are just a few of the many, many things we all deal with in all of our lives every day. But uncertainty, human beings do not like uncertainty, and dis-ease, we are not comfortable, and the result is stress. And so we're all, I see it, I hear it. Some people say, no, I kind of like living by myself, and we're getting through this all right. But overall, I feel like there's a baseline of stress that we're all experiencing that we did not experience prior to 2020. So, some problems. Let's talk about what you are doing to manage some of the practices for containing and dealing with COVID.
Yep. So everybody, thank you for responding quickly. Appreciate that. And we can see that there's going to be, again, multiple choices that they apply to each institution. But let me close this out and share. So as David was talking about contact tracing, it seems to be almost half the folks at institutions that are joining us today are doing some form of contact tracing. And then also you can see that, quarantine, I'm actually surprised that the number isn't higher. I have talked to a lot of universities and colleges that have a dedicated either hotel or some kind of a residence hall that is quarantining. But nonetheless, that's what our numbers are showing us today. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, sure. And, looking at this, I realized I think I forgot to select the multiple answer option in this poll when I was setting it up.
Oh.
But it is interesting. It is interesting if you have to pick one, then we get the priorities. And so contact tracing seems to be the highest priority within this. So that's interesting. However people respond, we learn stuff. So then what if, as you're doing these things, what have schools done? A lot of schools we hear have do-it-yourself approaches. And then that's based on how long will this last? And we don't know, but everybody's kind of hopeful, maybe shorter than longer. And so if that's the case, rather than put something big, heavy, expensive in place for the long haul, maybe you try to just get by and do what you need to do now. And if schools have medical centers, maybe they have an app, maybe they've instituted self-check protocols. If it's the medical center, it's very possible there may not be integration with a lot of other campus systems. You have to go to that app or their system to manage that. And all of these, we've heard there are challenges with the communications. Integrating communications with existing apps and platforms is generally a challenge. Some of the other things that we've seen and I've heard a lot of this. We use Qless or some of the other web-based queuing things. Like to pick up your cards, put them in a queue. Got to maintain the distance, and we don't want too many people showing up in a small space at a time. Well, that's a solution. You go to the website, you pay them a certain amount, and everybody connects to that and uses the service however it's provided. Occupancy management is often the same. In that case, there's often a piece of hardware that just can keep track of how many people walk through a door one way or the other. Again, standalone solutions doing a purpose, not necessarily connected to everything else. So having talked about those approaches, the problems, and then approaches, solutions, I think the overriding concern generally, and this is how we all approach things, is compliance. And is there anything wrong with compliance? Well, no, not really. But as I attended a financial services conference a few years ago, and there was a panel on compliance. And in financial services, they're very serious about their security. They maintain a lot of consumer data. The penalties for breaches are severe, both to reputation and to bank accounts. So they're very serious about keeping things secure. And there was a voice that came out of that panel that really struck me, and it said, compliance is a baseline. Compliance is the minimum that you have to do. It doesn't mean it's bad, but if all you're doing is compliance, well, maybe you'll prevent a lawsuit because you can prove you're compliant. But in the university world, especially in North America, the university experience is not about a baseline experience. It's about above and beyond. It's about how good can it be? So when we have to approach problems like pandemic response, should we be thinking like, let's do the bare minimum to get by and avoid problems for now, because maybe this will end, or maybe we won't have to spend a bunch of money, and maybe this will just go away and we'll be okay. But it's already been 8 months, and we just saw how many schools are still not anywhere near back to normal yet. Maybe we need to think above and beyond a little bit more. Just getting by is not a goal. So going one step further, if institutions can actually set a higher standard, can they move the needle on public policy so that, it's not just the government standing in, and of course, being an idealist, I vacillate between idealism and skepticism. But in this case, would it be possible if institutions went beyond and demonstrated how things could be even better? So having said all that, let's launch into, well, we're getting there, identity management. We had talked about this back in the spring, in April and May, and even into June. We were doing webinars. Frequently, we talked about identity management, and it's being done on campuses where one system knows who a person is. It knows how that person relates to that system, what doors they can open, what meals they can pick up or purchase. That's identity management. But managing identities across platforms and across solutions has been a challenge at universities, as all of you know, because the first question everybody always asks is, well, is it integrated? Because many things are not integrated, and that has kind of been a thorn in the side of university systems for many years. If it was integrated, great, you paid some money and it would work mostly. If it wasn't integrated, you almost didn't even want to bring it on campus. So that meant there were probably a lot of systems that weren't very well connected, and when the COVID response hit, it exposed vulnerabilities. Things that aren't connected may be good systems, but if they're not well connected, sharing information and managing people across those systems is hard to do. So JRNY, and we've been working with this company. We've been working with the company that makes JRNY for a number of years now in the university market. They introduced this product to manage people in cities, healthcare institutions, international sporting events. It's made to keep track of people and manage everything around where people go, what they do, and how they do it. So it works within your existing infrastructure. It's a cloud service and a related mobile app, and we believe it will enable a safe return and help you keep your institution open. So it's more than just several cobbled together, well, this solution we got on the web and it covers this, and over here people, do this thing, and we put all this together and we're kind of meeting the protocols. Well, JRNY can bring all those things together. It can centralize, to read from the screen for a moment, forgive me. It can centralize, manage, and synchronize all identities and credentials across systems for a complete look at, and here's the identity management part, who, what, and where events are happening on campus. It does this with connectors and application programming interfaces, APIs, so that it is interoperable with nearly every system on your campus. So this is great news. It connects with pretty much everything on your campus. JRNY is the only new thing. The other stuff gets to stay there. You don't have to replace it or change it. You just connect to it. In the process, of course, any system this far-reaching needs to have privacy and security as top concerns, and this JRNY platform has been designed with security firmly in mind. An important part, though, of privacy and security, and especially privacy part, is the university policy. And again, if the university is just reacting to guidelines or requirements, well, we have to control many people in this room. Okay, then we need this solution. And then we have to keep them apart over here. Well, then we have to do this. We need this thing. So you're picking and choosing independent solutions to deal with different sections of the code in effect. That's not a proactive policy. That's a reactive policy. But this tool, JRNY, gives you enough power, enough horsepower to be able to decide what, if you could do what you wanted, what would you do? How would you manage it? And not only would you start off in a certain place, because pandemic management is where it is right now, but it changes. We've seen it change, and it will change in the months to come. And months is a short amount of time. So JRNY is dynamic and configurable. So as things change, JRNY can be configured to move with those changes. This is this is kind of a headline item right here. I don't know if any of you have heard about the apps, or well, they're not exactly apps. They're exposure notification systems that are part now of iOS and Android operating systems. If you haven't noticed yet, open your phone, go to settings, and search for COVID. And you will see screens that look a lot like these iPhone screens that I grabbed from the Apple site. And in the front here, this headline is another item. I mean, these are things Google will help you find within seconds. I know North Carolina also did this, essentially, add your phone to fight COVID. So these are exposure notification features built into the operating systems of both iPhone and Android phones that help manage contact tracing. Google talks about it in a little more detail on their website. Apple didn't want, it wasn't as easy or clear. It's opt-in, and they are very serious about the security and the privacy here. They are trying very hard as far as what they say. Skeptic side of me returns there for a moment, but I think there's a lot of oversight and concern here. So they've built a lot of complicated little features into this exposure notification service that make it anonymous and yet helpful. Now, in the background is, you'll notice as I go through these couple of slides, it talks about government agency applications. For that, plug in the word JRNY, because what the phones are doing among themselves and through the operating systems is secure and anonymous, but the government, or in this case, the JRNY application, can then access that data, and you, as the proprietary of JRNY, would be able to make decisions based on the data you received. So reading through here, Alice and Bob are sitting there having a conversation. Everybody's fine, but then Bob goes and he has a test and he's positively diagnosed. And their phones exchange identifier beacons when they were talking. In other words, they're Bluetooth. It uses Bluetooth and it's opt-in. You have to say, yeah, I'll use this, and you have to turn on Bluetooth. The phones are exchanging some keys. They change every 15 minutes or so. Just the phones knew that they were near another phone and it had a certain number. And then when Bob finds out he's tested positive, he can allow his phone to upload that, and it goes into the cloud. And now Google or Apple or both, they both know that. And so then Alice, meanwhile, she's at home. She's not aware of what happened with Bob or anything, but every once in a while her phone downloads a new list of all the people in her area who have these Bluetooth keys, and one of them aligns with Bob, who is now a positive test person. So now she gets a notification, again, through the application, which in this case would be JRNY, says you've been exposed to someone who tested positive. And then the application, which again would be JRNY, says, go to such and such a place, go to the health center, do a test, whatever it is. Again, university policy determines what will happen there. But this is in your phones right now. The external piece would be JRNY. And if North Carolina or Colorado is also managing this, then they have an app too that they're running. But you as a university in those states would not necessarily have access to that app, even if your state did have it. So you could gain access to this quite secure and private communication regarding people that have been within range of each other. With contact tracing, it's, on campus, if you're doing your own, there's still a high degree of both honor code reliance and just the ability to get information. If you're working with phones and the data is automatically derived and transmitted, then the data is there. If you don't use it, it's no problem, but if you need it, it's there. And meanwhile, on the other side, if you send somebody out to do contact tracing and you're concerned about privacy, and you send 3 student workers out with notepads and here, go interview all the people that this person came into contact with over the last 4 days, that's probably a lot less private than accessing a database with some numbers in it. Because, now you've got conversations, you've got alerts, and you might miss stuff. So I get that privacy is a real concern, but there are ways that data can be managed through an automated digital system that are actually much more likely to be private than people collecting information by mouth, because we know how that goes. So just a note about privacy and contact tracing there. Mobile symptom surveys are built into JRNY. This is not new, and many, I'm sure even a lot of the schools that said they had contact tracing have everybody has mobile symptom surveys. It might be on a school website, a mobile app within your school. Again, how is that connected? How is that data analyzed? And what results from the use of that data when it's within JRNY, how you fill this out immediately goes into the JRNY analytics engine, and gets sent to the correct places. And so, because it's connected to the health center, and the health center can, based on a certain response, health center can send back instructions through the app or through text, however you want to do it. So having connected apps through a platform, it can be very valuable. It's very customizable, of course. The prompts can pop up before you gain access. Like, you can't go in here unless you complete this survey right now. Okay. Yes. Go on in. The data is secure in the analytics, like I said. Also, another thing that we know schools are doing is the capacity management. How many people can be in the dining hall? How many people can be in the classroom? The elevator. You may have invested in one of these systems with hardware and software to do this. How well is that connected to the other systems on your campus, or is it just a standalone doing that function? With JRNY, because it's connected
David?
Yeah, Danny.
I apologize. Are you still on slide 13?
I am on 16.
Okay, on my screen it's showing as 13. So I don't know if anybody else can confirm that with me. Mark is here.
I'm on 16 as what my screen is showing me right now.
Health and safety. Okay.
Okay,
that's
thanks,
good.
Danny. Mine's different.
No, that's good.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. All right, Danny's living in the past. So, all right, health and safety. So moving on, we're moving right along. And the capacity limits, right? So if you have a system to do that, is it connected to your other systems, or is it only just managing those rooms? Then you've configured them to allow a certain number of people in there. JRNY, because it can be connected to Wi-Fi, it can be connected to your access control systems. If you're outdoors, it can be reading GPS. It knows what's going on with your phone, and it can also monitor how many people are allowed to go in a room. And at a certain point, they're going to get notifications via their phone. You've hit the limit. You cannot go in here. And even communications can be sent to people as they're on their way to a dining hall that's now full, and redirect folks to another dining hall, for example. So that's JRNY calls that shift management, and the interactive two-way messaging is a very important part of this. So all these different features that are available because of the Geo and Chronos knowledge of where these phones are and when they are there. Jumping to quarantine for a minute, because every slide deck needs a medieval painting these days, or illumination from a medieval text. Quarantine, you probably all know this by now. It's a 40-day isolation practice that was found in the Mediterranean during the days of the plague, the Black Death. And when the ship came into the port, the governor of the city would require the ship to stay away from the port for 40 days so that everybody who was sick died, and everybody who lived was over it, and they got to come on to the dock. So that's that's the gloomy origin of quarantine, which is a word based, of course, on the old Italian word for 40. But if you are having to manage quarantine, it's built into JRNY. You can schedule and have random check-ins. You can put a limit on a geolocation. As soon as somebody goes outside that limit, it sends an alert, because again, it knows the location of the phone through its connection to all the various systems. The authentication is tamper-proof. So if you're using the QR code or the NFC chip tag that I show here in the slide, you present your phone to that tag, and it either reads the QR code or it reads the NFC chip. But either way, it registers that through the phone and the app with a timestamp, and it is a secure way of locating you at that point in time at that place. It also can give movement permits. It really, you can see here on the right, is the configuration screen. How long can people go certain places? Maybe after a certain time, like 9 to 11 at night, when not many people are around, people under quarantine can actually go out and wander around and then come back. That again, university policy decides. So quarantine, here's a way of managing it, and it's automatic, and it's on the phone. There's not somebody having to walk around with a nightstick making sure people in quarantine are doing what they're supposed to do. It's just built in. Another important part of the JRNY platform, because like I said, it was built for a lot of different uses, not just pandemic management, communications, and emergency management. Now, I know many campuses have emergency communications and management solutions, but JRNY also does that. And the cool thing about this is it brings the messaging and communication features that could be used in an emergency into managing pandemic response. So interactive two-way messaging and dashboard and reporting on everything that's done. So very nice and useful feature of JRNY above and beyond just pandemic management. And then the other pretty cool thing about it is that because it has the mobile app, and this is not news to any of you, that your phone can be a reader. Your phone is not necessarily just the provider of data to a system, but it can also receive data through a QR code or NFC, most likely QR, or whatever, and then transmit that through the app back to the system. So JRNY turns phones into mobile readers. All those years that schools have come to us and they say, well, we need a mobile reader for this or that. And then we have this $3,000 ruggedized device that'll do that, and it'll read a card and then transmit the data. But now everybody's phone becomes the reader. It flips it around, which is pretty cool. At the back end, analytics and dashboards are always very important, and JRNY does that. Everything that happens with everybody in the JRNY system is recorded, and there's a map-based user interface. If you want, you can watch people walk around, and custom reporting tools, data access with audit trails. Not everybody gets to see all the data, and everybody gets to see who saw what data. And also a very important part here, the AI, the artificial intelligence data connector for in-depth predictive analysis. So, that this is available for a lot of solutions. It's certainly there for JRNY. Put Splunk onto this and let it just grind on that data and tell you everything you want to know that you couldn't even have imagined. So nice features there on the back end. That brings us to a poll. Danny, you want to manage this?
Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I was disconnected and I just got back on. Great timing. So,
welcome back.
Yeah. So anyway, what are you waiting for? I mean, I guess we think about the front side of this, trying to manage people, but hopefully, it won't be that long. We'll be on the other side of it, and there'll be a vaccine and immunities where people will be able to distinguish themselves as no longer being susceptible to passing the virus along. And so, obviously that's a big concern. And, just going away is, I guess it's a strategy. But anyway, take a look at those and let's see what we got. Pretty overwhelming. Share this with you guys. That just makes sense. I don't think anybody thought that it was going away. And yep, I'm sure that we'll be listening a lot from what the government says. I know in our state here in North Carolina, we're regulated pretty heavily about what phase of this we're in, and I see that continuing. But anyway, I'll let you take that away, Dave.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's very interesting. So vaccine, and not surprising, but the likelihood of a vaccine keeps, we were thinking, with all the money and number of governments and pharmaceutical companies working on this, surely we'd have a vaccine by the end of the year. And yet now it looks like maybe that's not, we don't know. Again, we don't know. So as you're planning for the upcoming year, the return after the first of the year for spring term, and then after that, are you in a position where you can afford to just limp by with whatever systems you have, or is it time to really consider a solution that is capable of bringing all the information related to this kind of pandemic management and giving you the ability to craft policy for your institution that can make people comfortable? Because ultimately, everybody needs to be comfortable, and there are so many things that affect that comfort, like government regulations. Are we within range of those regulations? Okay, great. Well, then but then do we trust the government? Do they know what they were doing when they created those regulations? Was it enough? So because viruses sort of do what they do, and they're kind of hard to predict. So I think the comfort level is really important, and having broad-reaching systems that can automatically communicate and control policy, not necessarily control people, because people are still free agents mostly. But if as much as you can control the policy, can you create a higher comfort level and enable more openness on campus? I guess that's the goal. Not to think that we are going back to normal at a certain time, but rather how much farther can we move along the line? Do we need to huddle in the corner thinking, well, we don't know the distance to the door, so we better not move? Or is it reasonable to think that we could put some systems in place that could help us reach the door and get it open and get things sort of moving again? And for institutions of all kinds, this is crucial. The airline industry is just crashed, right? Literally. We all know that. I don't know if maybe some of you have flown. I have. It is really eerie to walk through the Atlanta airport, the largest, busiest airport in the world, when they're only using one concourse. It's just weird. And so that industry is trying to do something to get things back on track. And one thing that they've come up with, and it's not just the airline industry by itself, but people who address these identity management problems, and they've introduced something they call COMMONPASS. And looking at universities, in a way, universities are kind of like airlines. They're heavily regulated. They receive, through the student loans, a lot of money from the government. Everybody is concerned about what's going on there. I mean, obviously there are many differences, but in some ways there's some similarities. And the residential nature of universities is especially compelling, where people come and live there and eat all their meals on a campus. So what the airlines have done, working on this COMMONPASS, you can Google this and find it in a moment. The World Economic Forum is supporting this, but this is a lot like what we were talking about a few slides ago. You get a vaccine, you test negative, whatever it is, you will get a COMMONPASS that will allow you to go from one country to another, and it will happen mostly at airports. So using that, and JRNY has the ability to automatically create digital IDs and health status certifications. So same kind of thing. And again, it's not something where anybody has to look at a record and figure it out. The software just knows. You had a certain number of self-symptom checks, your temperature within a range, your location, you haven't, whatever it is, the software can just create these. And if there's any kind of vaccine or anything administered like that, then that would be also uploaded through the platform, and it would know that about you. So again, just trying to get people comfortable, and this is a way to do that. Everybody will know. Something that is of concern to us at ColorID, because we see it in other markets, managing guests and contractors has not been very strong in universities. The lovely environment, walk on campus, walk around, walk in and out of buildings, that's great. But we've talked to schools and they say, we're not taking care of our contractors, and they have cards that can open doors. We don't monitor them. And especially now when you're managing for pandemic response, it's very important to know who's on your campus and what are they doing. So guest and contractor management, visitor management, temporary management might be more important than it has been in the past. Guests can pre-register. They can get mobile or physical IDs as required. They can agree to whatever contracts that are part of their coming on to campus in the app. They can do their health surveys, they can be tracked, and they can be audited, audits run on those reports. So this is another feature of JRNY that would live beyond the pandemic response itself, because we all know those are kind of weak spots in campus personal or identity management. Is it integrated? Yeah, it is actually, and JRNY is integrated with all these and more. Most importantly, though, right here in the middle, this RESTful API, I think you all are aware of how important that is, because we've seen in just the last few years, as that has become popular, how quickly systems can be integrated. They need just 3 or 5 or 12 pieces of information from another system. Those can be exposed in the API, and one system can get that information without any trouble from another system. So that is a big key to JRNY's connections to all the other systems on campus. This was a map that Davidson College put together during the summer, and they say it is current through September 9th. It's about 1,500 schools. You can see it at this College Crisis website. And there's a paper they've written on this also. So about 1,500 schools here. Green means virtual. Pink means pretty much in person. So the darker the color, more green means more virtual. So California, pretty much nobody's on campus. In the Midwest, a fair amount of people are in kind of hybrid environments, maybe on campus, but learning virtually or in shifting. And then in the Northeast, again, more green. The point of this brings us back to where we started. A lot of schools are nowhere near the experience that everybody thought college was until 2020. And so we just want to encourage everyone to consider JRNY or similar platforms, but JRNY in particular, it's really the best we've seen. It's built for this. It's built to manage identities. It uses your existing infrastructure. You don't have to use all of it. You can use a portion of it at first or forever. It connects to your campus systems, and the goal is to create a safe and comfortable environment. Because I feel like safe is, everybody knows safe, but I feel like the level of comfort is also very important. And it builds a platform for the future. It's an identity management solution that will be with you for a long time. ColorID has a JRNY Resource Center. This is part of the first page of it there. And at the bottom left there, colorid.com, COVID-19 response solutions. So please visit our website. And with that, I'll bring this to a close and turn it back to Danny.
Well, thanks, David. I appreciate that, and great job as usual. I know everybody, a lot of people are familiar with your presentations, and certainly this is up there with the rest of them. Yeah, I appreciate everybody's time. Again, we want to try to let you know that we're here. If there's anything additional that you'd like to learn about JRNY, we are available for follow-up deep dive discussions. We're geared for presentations for you, if you have a response committee, or if there's campus leadership, whoever on your campus that you want to introduce JRNY. We're here to help you and get you through that process to try to get buy-in from senior level leadership. When we understand that this is an enterprise solution, and so it's going to involve a lot of people at the higher ends of the institution, and so but we're ready for that. We have the resources that we have already put together. We can share with you. We can help you to have these discussions. We're really well equipped to help evangelize this solution. So anything that if you have any questions or any additional information, just reach out to your account manager, or you can email us at sales@colorid.com. And on behalf of David and myself, again, thank you for the privilege of your time. That concludes today's session. Everybody be safe and be healthy. Goodbye.